The Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented her budget on 1st February 2021 for the fiscal year 2021-22. She presented a budget whose size is about 35 lakh crore, and to be precise, she is 34 lakh 83,236 crore. Now, when she presented the budget, we should actually know the context in which she presented the budget, and then only we can assess whether this budget was good or bad. Now, coming to the economic context, we all know that the COVID-19 pandemic has badly affected the Indian economy as well as the world economy, and we have seen that in the last 3 quarters, particularly in the fiscal year 2020-21, the economic growth is basically going to be negative. That means the GDP of India will contract around actually 7.7% as per the government estimates, and many economists also are assuming that the economy would contract by about 10% or even more in the fiscal year 2020-21. Now, in the coming fiscal year, that is 2021-22, the GDP would grow about 11%, and the Reserve Bank of India has also said that the economy would grow about 10.5%. So we can assume that the economy is going to grow at about 11% in the fiscal year 2021-22. Now, still there is a lot of uncertainty over the economic growth, and now in the past year, actually, when there was so much of uncertainty due to pandemic, both the finance minister and the Reserve Bank, basically we can say that both fiscal policy authorities and the monetary authorities have taken a lot of measures to revive the economy. Basically, we can say that just like Prime Minister Modi actually said that the finance minister Nirmala Sitharaman has presented 5 mini budgets during the lockdown period. People may have different opinion on this because the finance minister had presented a budget in last February, which was about 30 lakh crore, and during the lockdown period, she announced actually in 5 different days that she is going to spend about 20 lakh crore more additional to the in addition to the budget. So people thought that the government of India may actually spend about 50 lakh crore in the fiscal year 2020-21. So definitely people would not actually believe this number because this is actually too much money, and the government may not be able to actually spend that much money. Similarly, some people also criticize that this is sort of a loan mela because many loan schemes were announced actually by the finance minister. Now, if you look at the monetary authority, particularly the Reserve Bank of India, then Reserve Bank of India basically had actually tried to cut down the interest rate so that the investors actually can borrow money and invest in different sectors. So basically from fiscal side as well as monetary policy side, measures were taken actually to boost the confidence of the investors, particularly the private investments. Similarly, a lot of support measures actually were given to the poor people, particularly the migrant workers and the labor class. But still there were a lot of criticism, but we should understand that during such a time when the GDP growth is negative, or actually there is a lot of uncertainty on the growth, then your revenue collection actually falls. And during such time, actually there will be a lot of demand from the people actually to increase the spending on different sectors so that the economy comes back. Because we can clearly understand actually how the investment was quite low during the lockdown period, because the Reserve Bank of India frequently actually reduced the reverse repo rate, which indirectly implied that the commercial banks were not able to actually give loan to anybody, or we can say that there is no one coming to banks to take the loans. So the commercial banks were parking the money with the Reserve Bank, and that's how the Reserve Bank actually got enough liquidity actually, and so holding those money actually become costly for the Reserve Bank. So the Reserve Bank had to actually cut down the reverse repo rate so that the cost of holding a lot of liquidity is actually going down. So that means we can say that the private investment is not taking place in such a time, and now that's why there will be obviously demand actually from every quarter that government should spend more money so that the aggregate demand in the economy actually is actually revived, and that's why economy actually is the growth actually comes back to the normal. So that is the context in which the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented her budget. Now, when she presented the budget, actually she told that this budget actually gives thrust to six sectors. The first one is health and well-being. Then the second one is physical and financial capital and infrastructure. Then inclusive development and for aspirational India. And then reinvigorating human capital, innovation and R&D, minimum government and maximum governance. So we can actually, so that's what the Finance Minister said. These are the thrust areas in the budget. But if you analyze the budget, actually we can definitely say that actually government has given actually three priorities in this budget. So one would be definitely the health sector. Government has tried to increase the budgetary allocation. Of course, there are actually media reports also that says that government actually has basically tried to bring together the expenditures of the health sector and then sanitation together, and that's what government is claiming, that the budgetary allocation for the health sector has actually gone up. But then the expenditure secretary actually government of India defends that we are not comparing apples versus oranges. If you compare the expenses in the health sector as well as the sanitation sector last year and this year, then also there is a budgetary allocation. So you can actually believe these numbers that government has actually increased the allocation for the health and well-being, and that's how health sector actually has got priority, and that is quite obvious. Government has also allocated money for vaccination. So we can say that that's how the total expenditure in the budget has gone up. Okay, and of course in percent of GDP actually the number is not actually a very big jump, because now also the total expenditure in the health sector comes about 1.8% of GDP, which should be ideally about 4% or 5%. So, but still actually we can say that there is marginal increase in the health and well-being sector in this budget. Then the second is that government has given a lot of emphasis on the Atmanirbhar Bharat. During the lockdown period, when our supply chain, basically the import and exports were affected, and we could not, Indian producers could not get the raw material from China or other countries. So during that time itself, Government of India has announced actually to give priority on Atmanirbhar Bharat, and this budget also reflects priorities in that, because you can see that in certain areas government is trying to protect the industries by imposing a tariff. Similarly, wherever we are importing the raw materials, government has actually brought down the tariffs so that we can use those raw materials to produce in our own country. So Atmanirbhar Bharat has got the second priority, and then third priority actually that this budget has got or we can say that the characteristics of this budget is that this actually has gone paperless. So I would say that this budget has got two key priorities. One is health and well-being, and then second is that we want to make India Atmanirbhar. And now when we come to the budgetary allocation, actually there are a lot of actually dispute that which sector actually got more and why this sector could not actually get a higher allocation, and sort of things actually will come. So we should understand actually the economic growth and the deficit scenario as per the government figures provided in the budget document. Government actually had actually estimated to have about 3.5% fiscal deficit in the last year, that means or in the current fiscal year, that is 2020-21. But due to pandemic, the revenue mobilization drastically fell down, and the expenditure had to actually be increased, and that's how the fiscal deficit for the fiscal year 2020-21 is going to be about 9.5%. So when your fiscal deficit is so much, actually, then government actually cannot actually take the risk actually of borrowing more and more money. And we should also understand now we have a rule-based fiscal policy at place. That means Government of India has enacted Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act in the year 2003. So following these actually act, the expenditure has to be controlled. That means the fiscal deficit should be below 3% of the GDP, and revenue deficit should be 0. And so that actually provides a rule-based fiscal policy. That so government hands are tight actually. But then we can say that of course pandemic, actually during such a pandemic time, actually government has to actually relax those norms, and I think government has done that also. That's why we can see the fiscal deficit has touched 9.5%. Similarly, the revenue deficit also has gone up significantly by up to 7.5%, which is very unusual actually. So if you compare the economic crisis in India during 1991, we did not actually have this much fiscal deficit or revenue deficit. So both revenue deficits and fiscal deficits have gone up for the year fiscal year 2020-21, and for the year fiscal year 21-22, government is actually basically planning to keep the fiscal deficit at 6.8%, or you can say about 7% of the GDP, and the revenue deficit about 5.1%. So government is actually also trying to borrow a lot of money, because government is uncertain about the revenue mobilization, and that is why government actually is trying to borrow a lot of money and still keep the budget actually high. Okay? And so we can see that actually when we try to analyze the sectoral allocation, actually that would give us some idea about actually which sector has got priority. And as I told, that government actually is actually basically going to borrow a lot of money, because the fiscal space of the government is quite low because of the low economic growth prospects. And so let us see actually which sector actually has got priority and which sector has not got. Now if you look at the total budget, I have told that this budget has basically kept a target of spending about 34 lakh 83,236 crore, or roughly about 35 lakh crore. Now out of this actually a large part actually goes for the defense sector, okay? And that is quite obvious actually compared like in other years. Now what are sectors actually have seen a reduction in the spending? One is the pension, and then second is the petroleum ministry, then agriculture and allied activities. So in agriculture, that is quite actually disturbing, because agriculture actually had only recorded positive growth, and now Government of India has reduced the budget allocation for agriculture and allied activities. And similarly, government has reduced the total allocation for the development of Northeast, and also the total money for education sector has also gone down. I am talking about the numbers compared to the budget estimate of 2020-21 and 21-22. If you compare these numbers, then definitely we see a reduction in the budget allocation for the education sector also. To give the number, in the budget 21 last year budget, that is 2021, Government of India had allocated 99,312 crore for education sector, but this year government has allocated only 93,224 crore for the entire education. Now we should understand that Government of India has now brought new education policy in which actually it wants to basically restructure the education sector in different ways. So some announcements have been done also in the budget, that is it wants to bring a higher education council to regulate all the sectors together. Similarly, it is actually basically proposing to have National Research Foundation, and similarly it is trying to bring all the central institutes operating in one city under one umbrella. So like that actually a lot of reforms actually are being done as per the new education policy in the higher education, but the total allocation for the budget actually has gone down. Similarly, the Planning and Statistics Ministry has actually seen a significant reduction in the budget allocation. So there is a lot of controversy on the statistics of the present the government, because people complain that the government of India is not actually providing enough data actually for debate and discussions, and that is quite actually reflected in the budget, because for the planning and statistics, now the budget has actually been cut down by almost 50%, because last year budget had about 6,094 crore for the planning and statistics ministry, but this year it is only 2,472 crore rupees. So for the planning and statistics department, there is a lot of reduction in the budget allocation. Similarly, the social welfare and tax administration have seen a reduction in the budget. But in all other sectors, so we see basically in the defense subsidy, fertilizer, and then in food subsidy. But in food subsidy has actually doubled almost, and then in fertilizer subsidy the number has gone up. In energy sector also it has gone up. In fact, government has actually given a lot of emphasis on infrastructure. So we can say that the third priority is infrastructure. So the first one is health and health sector, and then second one would be Atmanirbhar, and third one would be the infrastructure, where actually basically government wants to bring portability in the energy sector. Basically you can choose your electricity provider, and similarly one nation one grid, and then bringing all sorts of energy like solar and thermal and hydel energy into one grid system. So all those things actually for that actually government is basically trying to invest a lot of money. Similar metro projects have got a lot of money. National highways actually are going to be expanded in certain states. So those announcements actually we have seen in the budget. And the health sector, it has also seen an increase in the budget allocation, and then we also see a reduction in the budget allocation in the IT and telecom sector. In the last year, we see that 59,349 crores were allocated, but this year this has gone down to 53,108 actually crores. So that's how we see that basically agriculture, then education, Northeast Development, Planning and Statistics Department, ministries of Government of India have seen a reduction in the budget. Now, what are actually other measures actually you can see, like for education, we see Ekalabya schools will be strengthened, and then one central university will be opened in Leh, newly formed union territory, and then when it comes to the health and sanitation in the urban areas, government has basically promised to provide drinking water to all households. Similarly, Swachh Bharat mission in urban. Similarly, Poshan Abhijan government is giving emphasis on the nutrition. So Poshan Abhijan is also starting, and similar government wants to have a freight corridor so that goods can be transported easily on the railway tracks, and so dedicated freight corridor. Now it wants to also basically do the disinvestment of some public sector bank like IDBI. Similarly, it also wants to mobilize money for LIC through IPO, and similarly also it has allowed actually the foreign investment to come into the insurance market. And however, of course, Government of India has announced that the board of directors should be majority of them should be Indians, but then private sector investment actually should actually come. Foreign investment should come to the LIC, to basically the insurance market. Similarly, it wants to monetize a lot of its assets, particularly the infrastructure, pay and use actually basis, and similarly metro projects in Cochin, and then in Pune, in Nagpur, and in Bangalore have actually got budget allocation. And similarly, Government of Odisha also is going to actually get money for a special economic corridor, basically from Keonjhar to actually Paradip port, so that the iron ores actually can be transported easily. So at the end, actually, if you want to say assess the budget, yes, we should understand the economic context in which the budget has been presented. There's a lot of economic uncertainty, so there is a lot of pressure on the government, and I think government has actually borrowed quite a lot of money actually in the past year, and also in the coming year government is planning to actually borrow a lot of money and do the spending, and so some sectors actually have witnessed a fall in the budget allocation, and health, infrastructure and Atmanirbhar actually have actually got priorities in these budgets. Thank you for watching this video.